Welcome back to the Stretch the Floor podcast. I'm Matthew here, as always, with Venushan, and we are in the middle of trade rumor season. The deadline is fast approaching, and the rumors are just they seem to be popping up every day. We're gonna get into basically all the rumors that we find the most interesting. But before we actually start speculating, early in the week a trade did happen, and it's kind of one that caught me off guard, and I think caught a lot of people off guard. The Knicks picking up Cam Reddish for what I think is a bit of an underpay. I personally think this is a steal for the Knicks. Do you think the same?
Yeah, so essentially Cam Reddish was traded for Kevin Knox and protected a top 18 protected Charlotte pick. And then they got who did they get? They got Cam Reddish, Solomon Hill, and a second round Brooklyn pick. So they got a hell of a haul back. Kevin Knox and a
Yeah.
top 18 protected pick for Cam Reddish. Kevin
Yeah.
Knox is not a part of this equation, so wasn't Solomon Hill. So essentially, it's a top 18 protected pick for Cam Reddish and a second round pick. And I think that's a great value for the Knicks end because they get a guy who could potentially start for them
Mm-hmm.
because that's how good he is. You know, he's shooting nearly 40%. His defense this season has been kind of atrocious. But at the end of the day, if you don't want to be on a team and you're requesting trades, you're not going to want to try on defense. And we've seen him previous years besides this year. He's been pretty good on defense.
Yeah.
He's been pretty locked down. Him and DeAndre Hunter were always considered like the defensive tandem or alongside Trae Young. So I think he still has the defensive capabilities to be back, and especially under Tom Thibodeau, who's going to be like, you play defense or you get no minutes, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think with Tom Thibodeau, he's going to be a great defender. I think he'll start at that small forward spot. I think Evan Fournier hasn't played bad enough where Cam Reddish could win that starting spot. And I just think this is a home run for the Knicks because they get a starter who's young,
Mm-hmm.
who's best friends with their future star in RJ Barrett for a top 18 protected pick, which isn't even theirs. That's a huge W.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned his like potential regression on defense, but it seems like he's made it clear that he's not happy in his role, right? And he
Yeah.
wants a bigger role. So he's mentally he's not where he could
Like
be.
then,
So like that, I expect that to pick up. And just last week we were talking about him in potential Jeremy Grant trades, right?
yeah.
Attaching maybe picks, and then you get him for a top 18 protected pick and pretty much nothing. Kevin Knox, like I don't understand, where are the Hawks coming from in this trade? Like, did they just need to get him out that badly? Could they not have waited for a better trade to come along?
Yeah, I think maybe it's a thing of where fans and like NBA fans like across every franchise overvalues a player compared to like the actual like GM and front office value. Because we see
Mm-hmm.
other trades like the Lakers offered 2 seconds. No one else offered like a top 14 protected pick. You know what I mean? It's like stuff like that. And he just looked back at it and it's like, man, like we would have offered it. Like if we were Raptors GMs to the
Yeah.
Messiah, we would have thrown a top 14 protected pick. But clearly the Raptors didn't want to do that. You know what I mean? Like it's where every single franchise, NBA fan base and stuff overvalues a player more than what he actually is. And then we get to see if this is either the fans are right, where he's actually worth what he is, or the GMs are right, and he's actually only worth around that like top 20, top 18 round value. Another player, like another example of this is like Ben Simmons. Like we all value him as fans pretty low right now, but there's still NBA GMs and stuff offering like Darren Fox and stuff for him, right? We'll get into that later, but that's another case of where fans and GM values are massively different.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. We're gonna get into Simmons in just a little bit. Before we do get into more trades, some non-trade news to talk about. There was a report this week that the Nuggets, our Nuggets, have not ruled out Michael Porter Jr. for the season. Um, like his status has been up in the air. I was kind of assuming that he wasn't going to play, but like we've talked about in the past, like if Murray's maybe getting ready to come back close to playoff time, and MPJ's like maybe coming back, maybe not, then there's probably incentive to probably bring them both back because you can actually put a really good team together for come playoff time. Anyway, if
Yeah.
MPJ does end up coming back, and it seems like Murray is rehabbing pretty well from the ACL tear from some of the videos we've seen and stuff, what where do the Nuggets like end up in the West? Because there's right now in the 6th seed with Jokic playing like an MVP and not too much else.
Yeah.
If they add 2 all-star caliber players back to their team, I like them better than the Mavs. I like them better than a lot of the teams ahead of them in the standings right now.
I think, but I'm gonna say something that kind of contradicts their age, but they have enough playoff experience where they could go out on the road and get the W's. You know what I mean? Like they've been playing in the playoffs the last 2 years, been having decent runs also in the playoffs, winning playoff series, and they just have that playoff experience where road games aren't gonna affect them as much as like a first time playoff team like Minnesota or the Sacramento, for example, right? Like those are teams to where you can see the difference between road games and home games. But when you have like Jokic, Jamal Murray and stuff, like those two guys can steady the ship and make sure road games don't affect them too much. It's just making sure these two guys, Jamal Murray and MPJ, get enough reps so they're 100% come playoff time. Because yeah, they can return for the playoffs. But if their
Yeah.
first game is like game 3 of the first round,
Yeah.
they're not going to be anywhere near 100% until like the conference finals if you make it, right?
Yeah.
I think Jamal Murray's expected for a March return, and he has a windmill dunk that he posted, and the Nuggets posted on their social media. So it looks like he's on target for that March return. And if he returns in March, he should have enough reps to get back to 100% come playoff time. MPJ, we've seen no videos of him, so
Mm-hmm.
that's a little scary. Like, is he shooting in the gym? Like, is he playing 1-on-1? Like, what is
Yeah.
he cleared for? What is he not cleared for? How's everything going? So it's all speculation. But if he comes around at the same time, then man, the Nuggets, in my opinion, they could beat the Suns. They could beat the Jazz, and they could give the Warriors a run for their money, and they can actually be title contenders. Like that's how much I like this team with both those guys back inserted into lineup fully healthy. Because you're talking about players like Will Barton being the fourth
Yeah.
option, and you're talking about Aaron Gordon now becoming the fifth option. Like that becomes one of the best starting lineups and one
Mm-hmm.
of the deepest starting lineups in the league. And then you have Monty Morris, who potentially becomes the best six man. Like
Yeah.
that's how good this team
Yeah.
will become with everyone sliding down. And you have Jeff Green off the bench, Jermichael
Bones
Green off the
Highland.
bench,
Yeah.
Bones Highland, Composo off the bench. Like this team becomes elite, becomes deep. And yeah, if these two guys return and they come back 100%, title contenders.
Yeah, totally agree. That the fully healthy Nuggets, I personally think, are the best team in the West. Like, I maybe not
I think so too.
throughout, maybe not like record wise throughout the course of the regular season, even if they were fully healthy, but in a playoff series, I think I would take them over any other team in the West. And
Yeah.
if even if we're talking about like let's
The
say it's just
Warriors.
Murray that comes back. Let's say it's only Murray. I think I would take them maybe third, just
Yeah.
behind the Warriors and Phoenix, and I think they'd have a good series with both. So talk about getting both those guys back, even if MPJ is like playing, I don't know, 20 minutes a game and Murray's like at 85% or 90%. If you have Jokic and like anyone who's like a capable player who can
Yeah.
have a good game here and there, who can have like a 25, 30-point game here and there, you're gonna win a lot of playoff games. So yeah, I mean a March return for Murray, that gives him plenty of time to get ramped up come playoff time, right? So
Yeah.
we'll see.
And people have to forget how good like Jamal Murray is sometimes. Like this
Yeah.
guy, he's an elite shooter. He could get his own basket. Like in the bubble, he was literally playing like Michael Jordan-esque. Like
Mm-hmm.
this guy could just go off and he's just does it come playoff time. Like he's one of those playoff performers.
Yeah.
He does it. And once Jamal Murray, I mean, like once Jokic has a 25-point scorer and like Jamal Murray or near 25-point scorer, it just opens up the game so much for him because
Mm-hmm.
it's going to reduce doubling, all that stuff. Everything's just going to come, it's just going to fall in order. And
Yeah.
that's all they need. And man, we thought it was going to be next year where they come back, they're like battling and they're like ready to take on the Warriors, who potentially look like the championship favorites. We'll get
Mm-hmm.
into that the next segment. But yeah, they look crazy. But this Nuggets team, man, they're the dark horse. They're obviously our favorite team out in the West. So we're going to be rooting for them. And man, it's just going to be something fun to see.
Yeah. I can't wait. I think um past the Suns and Warriors, I think the rest of the West is pretty much up for grabs. Memphis is
Yeah.
red hot right now. Utah obviously is always going to be there, but you talk about the Nuggets with adding 2 all-star caliber players back,
Crazy.
that can change up everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into some
Now let's get into
trade.
the Warriors. Let's get
Let's
into
get
the
into the
Warriors.
Warriors.
Yeah, the Warriors, the reason why I said they're the favorites is because one of the best players suffered an MCL sprain. That's Kevin Durant.
Mm,
Uh, so an MCL sprain can mean he could be out up to 1 to 2 weeks, maybe a month plus. And the
yeah.
reason for that is they said he is expected to return to full strength in rehab period, but there is no timetable for his return. So that is a huge blow to the NBA. Hopefully he doesn't re-aggravate, or hopefully it doesn't become a sprain, a tear, all that stuff. Everything at the top. He did off on his own, like just living. It just because and Zach LaVine both suffer similar knee injury. The one to see interesting because now Giannis is probably the clear favorite to come out the East with these two hurt. But hopefully they're able to make full returns before even like the All-Star break.
Yeah. The thing is when it's Kevin Durant, like you always want to use an abundance of caution, right? So how
Caution.
careful are they going to be with him? Who knows? I personally would not risk it. Like, how worried are you about seeding going into the
Yeah.
playoffs if you're the Nets, right? If you have a healthy Kevin Durant, healthy James Harden, and healthy Kyrie Irving, even if he's only playing road games,
Yeah.
that's all you need. Personally, for my fantasy team, I want them to bring it back as soon as possible. But I I don't know. What did you say the time range was for this? Like anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks to like 6 weeks?
Yeah, 1 to 2 weeks to six
Yeah.
weeks because it depends on the severity of the sprain, how close it is to tear. But that's why they gave no timetable because even if he
Yeah.
sits 6 weeks, James Harden's a good enough player.
Yeah.
He could keep you a top four seed. That's how good
Yeah.
he is.
Yeah.
And then Nets are in a weird situation where they might be better off with the 7th seed or the 6th seed. Let's say avoid the play in, and Kyrie Irving gets to play more games in
Yeah.
the first round
Yeah.
matchup and the second round
Yeah.
matchups, right? So they might be better off with this 6th seed. So as long as they get 6th and not 7th or 8th because they don't want to play playing games, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure James Harden can get that 6th seed
Yeah. And
all by
I can't
himself.
see them if Kevin Durant misses, let's say he misses 2 months. I can't see them dropping to the 6th seed. I
James
love
Harden.
our Raptors are good. The Cavs are good. Like some of these other teams are good, but James Harden, even he might just turn into Houston James Harden mode, just turn back the clock by 2 years, right? And just go crazy, drop, 35, 38 points a night. And
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's get into some of those trade rumors that we talked about. First and foremost, there was a rumor that came out earlier in the week that our Toronto Raptors are interested in reacquiring big man Jakob Poeltl. He's only making 9.3 million. He's got one more year on his deal after this. So it wouldn't take too much to acquire him in terms of salaries, I think. First of all, what would his value be on the trade market? And do you think this is a good fit for the Raptors?
It's a protected pick. Like I don't know where I obviously see some of these Spurs fan make like, oh gee, Gary Trent Jr. Like,
Yeah.
no, that's not happening. Fred VanVleet's contract's too much to trade for him anyways. So is Pascal Siakam. Scotty Barnes is obviously untouchable. Even Spurs
Mhm.
fans know that. And
Yeah.
then OG, we're not trading OG for a center. Like in today's NBA, that would just be one of the craziest moves of all
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Obviously, I understand why they want him and why they want their front office to go get him. But that's the same reason why we want to keep him. Same
Yeah.
with Gary Trent Jr. He's been an elite defender from the shooting guard position, also shooting pretty good and also being clutch, improving his playmaking and improving game by game, it seems like, in every
Yep.
aspect of basketball. So why would we trade that? And he's only 22. I know he's been in the NBA for a while, but people forget how
Mhm.
young he is. I think
Yeah.
23. I think he just recently turned 23, but he's still in his not even 25 yet. He's still in his early
Crazy.
20s. Like he's going to be here for a while. Same with OG. OG's in his early 20s. So those
Yeah.
two are staying. That's not happening. So that's our whole starters. We're basically not getting traded for him. So we look at the bench and we're like, we don't have anyone who's a straight up equal value for him. Like whether that be Precious, whether that be Boucher. So you're gonna have to attach a pick.
Mhm.
Obviously, the discussions right now are probably the protection of the first pick. Probably the Spurs want to at least protect as possible. They said, all right, get a top 10 protected, top 5, something like that. Whereas the Raptors want like a top 14, top 15 protected pick to go out instead to get him. So it's probably going to be Boucher plus a protected pick. They're just working on the protections right now.
Yeah. In a vacuum, I like this. I like him on the Raptors. I mean,
Yeah.
he's just kind of a plug and play big man. He can play 20 minutes. He can play 35 minutes if you want him to. He's
Yeah.
averaging a block and a half per game, shooting 60% from the field. other than shooting, like he doesn't shoot threes at all, and he's one of the worst free throw shooters in the NBA.
Yeah,
Outside of that, he does everything you want in a big man. He grabs 9 boards a game. He's just kind of a nice, solid big man. I think him and Kim Birch kind of platooning at that center spot with Precious playing some minutes if we don't trade him in that trade, and Boucher
yeah,
would probably be in that trade too. Anyway, but so you think it would be like a top 14 protected pick? Is that?
yeah. Top 14 plus
Yeah, I think.
Boucher, but they're probably trying to find a third team who wants Boucher and probably get
Mm,
like seconds or maybe a younger player for
yeah,
Boucher because Boucher he's been playing amazing where he can get you like a Jalen Smith, right? Because he could go there and now you get Jalen Smith and a protective pick for Jakob Poeltl, and that looks like a great deal from the Spurs end of
yeah,
the deal, right?
yeah.
And also, this is a rumor, but the Spurs have made a midseason trade like twice in my lifetime,
Hmm.
so don't expect this to happen. And also, Jakob Poeltl, someone who does buy into the Spurs culture, doing the minimalistic things and stuff. So don't expect a midseason trade from the Spurs. So yeah, this is a cool rumor. It's cool to talk about this reunion since we did draft him.
Hmm.
A lot of people weren't happy when he was drafted here. That has to be admitted. But him and Pascal Siakam's like their like connection and
Yeah,
all that
yeah,
stuff made him become like a fan favorite.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, the Spurs are the Spurs, and don't expect it to make a midseason trade unless it's just like dumping off that young. Like
yeah,
don't expect it to move a big piece of their core midseason because they never do
yeah,
that.
yeah. You brought up like the just the fundamental like little things he learned to do on the Spurs, which
Yeah,
I think has turned him into like a really serviceable big man. Because like, let's say he went to another team, another system where that
they
those kind
just
of
be
things
JaVale
weren't
McGee.
emphasized. I can see him being JaVale McGee or worse, or potentially like being one of those big men that just finds himself out of the league. Not
Yeah,
not any disrespect to him, but he's not the most like athletic guy or the most talented guy that I've ever
yeah,
seen. But he's really good at doing those fundamental little things now. So I think he's a nice piece to have. I would definitely take him at that price for sure. But
yeah, for
again,
sure.
you said the Spurs have made, you can
Two.
count on one hand the number of times that they've made a midseason trade. Now they're historically always good, so maybe when they're bad, things change. But we shall see.
Yeah,
My guess would probably be no, even though I would take
no,
him. Okay. So the rest of the rumors kind of surround Ben Simmons.
yeah,
But before we get into Simmons, let's get into the Mavericks because another report surfaced that the Mavericks are interested in wanting either Miles Turner, who doesn't want Miles Turner, or John Collins. And personally, adding either one of those guys to Luka, to a team with Luka, is a huge win in my opinion. Just as a shooting center, a guy who can play defense, protect the rim, switch like Miles Turner, and John Collins is such an explosive player. Um, Turner's price tag is definitely a bit lower than Collins. But
100%.
what would it take to get either one of these guys for the Mavs?
Yeah, so there was a lot of like Turner trade rumors. We had like the Gordon Hayward, they wanted a swap there. Then we had Dom wanting OG Anunoby, which is a rumor from Pacers insider. So
Yeah,
that was not a real rumor. Obviously, they want OG, but we're not going to trade him for the Miles
yeah,
Turner. So those are like the two rumors that are most prevalent. And then if you just see what the Mavs have to offer, it's either Jalen Brunson and then something to make the cap fit. So it's either Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleber, someone like Dwight Powell. But the big player would be Jalen Brunson. And Jalen Brunson's young. He's good. He could get you points. And I think he's the best player like to go for the Pacers because I think he's better than Gordon Hayward in the terms that he's younger. So
hmm,
like he can actually grow and build, and he could build like a future with him. Whereas Gordon Hayward's already in his 30s, and you're just gonna be
yeah,
another middle of the pack team if you acquire him. And I think the OG one, you can only get OG if you throw in picks too, right? So do you really want to throw in 3 first round picks when you're not even in the playoffs right now? So
yeah.
probably wouldn't do that. So yeah, Jalen Brunson is who I would be targeting if I was the Pacers and looking to get Miles Turner to the Mavs.
I agree. And the thing is about the Mavs, if you trade away Brunson and you bring in Turner,
You're
who
huge.
outside who out you're huge, and who outside of Luca can dribble the basketball, right? Who outside of Luca can run a pick and roll, right? That's been a problem they've had the last couple of years, and Brunson was always the one guy that Luca could fall back on, whether it was on the court at the same time or coming off the bench as a six man. So there's obviously a trade off there, but I think everyone in the NBA likes Brunson, and I think the Pacers would be lucky to get him. You could probably you could just back up Malcolm Brogdon at the point guard spot. That
I think you could start at the point guard and move
yeah,
Brogdon to the shooting guard.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
There's just a lot of things that you could do that would move Sabonis to the center, which is what we wanted to see for a long
yeah,
time. Sabonis is the center. Like a lot of the times when you're looking at the starting lineup on the NBA app or whatever, it literally says Miles Turner power forward and
yeah.
Sabonis center. So like that wouldn't change much. But anyway, there's a trade off with that. How about John Collins? So do the Mavs like they can't get John Collins, right?
No, they can't. I think the only way they could get John Collins is like if some other like third team, whatever, loves Jalen Brunson, because Jalen Brunson is their biggest trade asset and he just doesn't fit alongside Trae Young.
Yeah.
Fits alongside Malcolm Brogdon because Malcolm Brogdon is big enough to play the two and can't play the two. But Trae Young is a point guard. He cannot play the two. And Jalen Brunson's a point guard. He cannot play the two. Yes, he plays the two with Luka Doncic, but Luka Doncic is like 6'6". So Luka Doncic guards shooting guards and he guards point guards. If you ask Jalen Brunson to guard shooting guards, he's gonna get destroyed. So yeah, that's definitely not something the Hawks are gonna do unless they get a bunch of picks. And then we're talking about stuff like that. Then it becomes a little iffy situation. So I think the John Collins one is extremely unlikely that you're trying to be a third team to sneak in and get him. But the Mavs one, I think they definitely do have a good enough piece because Jalen Brunson this year is averaging 16 points, 5.6 assists, 3.8 rebounds, 1-3 a game, while being one of the best like off-ball players too, because he's playing off of Luka Doncic. So that's definitely going to be an interesting player to grab for them. Yeah, it's like you said though. Do you trade that playmaking, that ball handling for another big? It's a toss-up the Mavs have to come to a decision with.
Yeah. And they're in kind of a sticky situation because this is with the third year in a row where they're like, they're respectable, they're good, they're probably going to get into the playoffs, but do we realistically expect them to do anything in the playoffs?
No.
They need to make some additions to this roster, but it's hard because their only asset that's worth anything is Jalen Brunson, unless they wanted to do something crazy and like try to get someone to take Porzingis. But it's just tough. I feel like they're going to need to make a free agent signing at some point, maybe hit on a draft pick or I don't even know, something like that. But we'll see. Okay, so John Collins is also involved in rumors with Ben Simmons. We talked about Simmons to Atlanta last week, but we didn't talk about John Collins being part of that. We talked about Cam Reddish, and now Cam Reddish is gone, and a couple other guys. So if Simmons does get to Atlanta, is it going to have to be for Collins?
Now it looks like that's the whole point of like the Tobias Harris like third team, trying to find him a third team, because it just seems like they're kind of okay with this Ben for Collins swap plus like whatever else they have to add. Because like that way, who's the power forward of the future? John Collins. So now I need to trade Tobias Harris, and that's where that whole rumor came out. Like they want to trade both at the same time because I would assume a good power forward is coming back, and that seems like John Collins. In my opinion, I would not want that package because I'd rather have a ball handler and someone who could like really be elite next to Joel Embiid rather than John Collins, who's a good power forward. But I don't know. I just never see a center power forward tandem as your 1-2 best players winning a championship. So I don't know. I wouldn't be interested in it if I was Philadelphia, unless I'm waiting to get John Collins and then eventually flip him for someone else. But yeah, this just makes the Ben Simmons trade rumors even more confusing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And this is something we talked about a little bit before. Is Embiid gonna like if I'm Embiid, I'm 27, 28, whatever. I'm in my prime and MVP caliber player, and there is a max player who is just not playing for my team, and we're still respectable. We're still in that playoff mix. Like, I don't want to just go out in the first round. I don't want to waste a season. Now, like, that's not saying I think you should pressure them to bring Simmons back or pressure Simmons to come back. But if you want to keep your star happy, which is what in the NBA what you have to do, you might have to make a trade this deadline.
Yeah. Like I don't know if it's John Collins, but obviously someone like Pascal Siakam is someone he liked a lot.
Mhm.
And I think that trade is really off the book. I don't think the Raptors do it anymore just because I don't think they can, I don't think they're confident can be like, oh, we get Ben Simmons to play because of,
Yeah.
a whole
Yeah.
different border, a whole much more stricter
Yeah.
rules and stuff. I don't think the Raptors
A
are going
little
to take
colder
that
than
risk.
California too.
Yeah, a little colder. So I don't think the
Yeah.
Raptors are going to take that risk. But that's someone who's Joel Embiid's best, like a close friend, right? That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
And then Joel Embiid, presumably in that situation, would be like, hey, bring Pascal Siakam in. I think we can really do something special. So with these other players that are being involved in trade rumors, John Collins, Darren Fox, if Ben Simmons, if like Joel Embiid really likes one of them, he's could be like, yo, bring this guy in. I really think we could win a championship. And then if you don't do it for a whole year and if Ben Simmons doesn't play,
Mm-hmm.
he just might be like, you guys just don't care about winning. Like you guys
Yeah.
just say stuff to the media, oh, I want to make the best of Ben Simmons times and stuff.
Yeah.
You guys just don't care. You guys are more infatuated with James Harden and him being the star than me being the star, right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And then that just seems like they're breaking a bridge, like slowly and steadily. So
Yeah.
obviously that's something to be wary of because he's probably pressuring them to make a trade for like Darren Fox,
Mm-hmm.
who isn't really what Philadelphia want, but that's something who Joel Embiid wants because a nice pick and roll partner, someone who could get 20, someone who could get 10 assists.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty good for Joel Embiid.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about that Kings rumor because when it surfaced that the Sixers were trying to trade Tobias Harris.
Yeah.
If it's going to be not a 3-team trade, if it's going to be a two-team trade, the Kings seem like the only option, right? Because it could be, Buddy Hield, Darren Fox, and Harrison Barnes to the Sixers, and then Simmons and Harris to the Kings. And in my opinion, that makes both teams a lot better. It makes both teams make a lot more sense. But you mentioned that you don't think the Sixers want Darren Fox.
Yeah, they just want some shooters. That's just at the end of the day, they want another. If they're trading Ben Simmons, they want a shooter back in his spot, someone who could hit 36 to 40% from three. And yeah, Buddy Hield fits that. Harrison Barnes, good enough shooter to pass at the power forward spot.
Yeah.
But they just wary of Darren Fox shooting. And if it's going to be the same situation where people sag off, Ben Simmons, sag off Fox now, just double Joel Embiid. I think at the end of the day, you have to accept that Ben Simmons isn't playing for you. So you can't be like, oh man, I'm trading this young 25-year-old who was second in defensive player of the year. No, you're trading a max contract who doesn't want to play for you. Yeah. And I think if you're getting back someone who's 20 and 10, that's an incredible W. And I would be all over it. And I would surprise that the Sixers are part of the rumors that are like hesitant on this because I would be much more hesitant if I'm the Kings acquiring a player who's never played for half a season and is willing to take on like $16 million in fines. I mean, much more hesitant to get that player than Darren Fox, who's averaging 20 and 10, like who can average 20 and 10.
Yeah. A couple of things here. Number one, Ben Simmons is not just a non-shooter. Ben Simmons is a guy who passes up layups.
Yeah.
Right. With the game on the line. Darren Fox, as much as streaky as he is from three, as unreliable as he has been from three, he's not going to do that. This guy will at least, like you said, he can average 20 and 10. That's the next point I wanted to make is I think you and I rate him pretty highly, Darren Fox, and a lot of people do, but some people don't feel so high on him. And in my opinion, that's largely to do with with being on the Kings.
Yeah.
Like what about the Kings makes us think that it's a good place for player development? That's a good place to showcase who you are as a player. You come to the Sixers, good system. You have an established MVP. The pecking order is very clear. Darren Fox doesn't have to do as much. He's going to get better scoring opportunities. He's going to it's just such a much, much better situation. And then you factor in what both teams look like after this trade. Let's start with the Sixers side too. So you have a starting lineup of Darren Fox, Buddy Hield, right?
Danny Green /
Matisse Thybulle, whatever, and then Harrison Barnes, who really solid player, good fourth option, right? And then Joel Embiid with a bench of Tyrese Maxey,
Seth Curry.
Yeah, Seth Curry and
Korkmaz,
drawing a blank on what's his name,
Drummond.
Shake Milton, right? And anyway, that's a really good team with Andre Drummond, and then The King side I kind of like even better because that moves Tyrese Halliburton and Davion Mitchell to the starting
Starting.
backcourt.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Ben Simmons on the wing, Tobias Harris, and then Rashawn Holmes with a kind of lackluster bench of Terrence Davis, Tristan Thompson, and Metu. But you can
Yeah.
you can always find guys to make your bench better, right? So I like both teams after that swap. In my opinion, this checks all the boxes. You're getting pretty good value in terms of star power, in terms of
Yeah.
winning now and winning in the future back from Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is going to a California team, so he can't complain.
Yeah.
And the Kings kind of put a team together that is going to be really good defensively and could, be a playoff caliber team as soon as next year.
Yeah. And they could fix that bench through
Yeah.
one off season and one draft.
Yeah.
You could just draft someone who's a little bit of a ball, like a ball playing wing for the
Yeah.
small forward. You sign a veteran point guard or trade for one like TJ McConnell, try to get him, or sign like a Rubio for your bench.
Yep.
And boom, you're looking like a 6 seed, a 7 seed, or
Yeah.
maybe even if Ben Simmons is playing elite again, a top 4 seed, right? Like
Mhm.
you could be the next Memphis story. So obviously it gets to make sense from the Kings. That's where the Kings are pushing it. So I think
Yeah.
everyone's acceptance of the Kings, it makes sense. It's just the 76ers and Daryl Morey expect Damian Lillard. Like there's 0% chance I trade Damian Lillard for Ben Simmons.
No.
Like I'm not taking the risk of rebuilding around a guy who is this big of an issue. So there's 0% chance that happens. I'll much rather go trade Damian Lillard for like just picks and just like
Yeah.
the New York route. Well, I'd much rather get RJ Barrett and a bunch of picks, right? Because at the end of the day, RJ Barrett's gonna play super hard, and him and
Mhm.
Anthony Simons are gonna be playing hard all the time. They're gonna suck. They're gonna get top picks, and stuff like that, right? But I'll never trade for Ben Simmons, who's kind of maybe even ruin Anthony Simons and cause issues there. So I think they just have to accept that. Like, I think like Portland like could do them a favor and be like,
Mhm.
I'll never ever trade this for Ben Simmons, because I
Yeah.
don't know what Daryl
True.
Morey is thinking. Like, I think literally
Yeah.
Portland and like James Harden might have to call him up and be like, I like Kevin Durant. He's my best friend. I'm gonna be playing in Brooklyn. So I think after those two things happened, Daryl Morey could come back to reality
Yeah.
and start doing these trades. Because Daryl Morey and Elton Brand they're not in reality right now, because Darren Fox is by far the best package you'll receive.
Yeah.
They should just do it already.
No, exactly. Like the team that's going to trade for Ben Simmons is not a team
Portland.
like
Yeah.
Portland or the Nets. It's a team that is either desperate like the Kings, desperate for a winning season, or a team that like the Pacers or something that is just ready to blow things up, ready to hit the reset button.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think Portland's at that spot, and trading a guy like Damian Lillard, what Damian Lillard has been to that team and to that city, you're not going to trade him for Ben Simmons. I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. So I'm sorry, Daryl Morey, but you're not getting James Harden, you're not getting Damian Lillard. You're getting Darren Fox. Literally, I would bet on him making the All-Star team.
Yeah.
If he went to the Sixers.
He's that good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think with Darren Fox, they could be like a top 2 seed again.
Yeah.
And they could get 2 All-Stars. So, man, we've been trying to push this trade for so long. I think everyone's sick of the Ben Simmons trade rumors, to the point where it's like detrimental to like Daryl Morey. Right now, it's just Ben Simmons dropping his stock. But now, man, like I dislike Daryl Morey and Elton Brand. So yeah, Daryl Morey definitely has to do something, because if we're getting this annoyed and this dislike, we're just trying to point out, like, think how much we're getting disappointed. And now imagine you're Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
Just imagine how annoyed you're getting as a fan. Not even a fan of Philadelphia, just a fan of the NBA. So imagine you're a Philly fan. So add that annoyingness on top. And now imagine your star MVP player, Joel Embiid, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, a trade has to happen this offseason, because
I know
normal NBA fans are this annoyed. Philly fans, Joel Embiid.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm Embiid, I'm thinking tomorrow I could be playing with De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, and Harrison Barnes, right? And right now I'm playing with. There's a $30-something million player just not playing, just sitting at home not playing, and we're still a 6 seed, right? That's just, come on, Daryl Morey, you got to make a move. You got to make a move. That pretty much does it for all the trading rumors. There was one minor rumor that teams are interested in Ricky Rubio's expiring contract. I haven't really been able to think of any Anything for that? I don't know if you
Yeah.
have.
The best one, the one I hope happens is give us 2 second-round picks and we'll give you Goran Dragic. You guys
Oh
get
yeah.
Goran Dragic is expiring. He could be pretty nice, pretty good scorer. He wants to play for a playoff team. So go for that because we're not buying him
Hmm.
out. So you guys get that and give us 1 second. That's all you got to give us. 1 second.
Yeah.
Ricky Rubio, you could go rehab wherever you want.
Hmm.
You don't even need to come to Toronto. If you want to come rehab in Toronto, feel free.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll take a second pick. We've been pretty good with those second round picks. Masai Ujiri has been pretty good. So
Yeah.
bring those
Yeah.
into the locker.
I like that. I watch every Raptors game and I truly forgot that Goran Dragic was on the
Yeah.
Raptors. So I like I like that. If we can get a second round pick out of that, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that pretty much covers all the trade rumors that surface this week. There's sure to be another hopefully 5-6 rumors that come out and hopefully a couple of actual trades that happen this week. So next week we're going to be recapping whatever happens in terms of trade talk. And then also it's the final weekend before all-star teams are announced next weekend. So we'll be doing our final predictions. Our DeMar DeRozan all-star starter picks are looking really good that we both had last
Yeah.
time. So we shall see what happens there. Yes, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. In the meantime, you can check us out on all of our social media platforms, Instagram at Stretch the Floor Podcast, YouTube, SDF Clips, subscribe, like for all the best clips. Most importantly, subscribe to the podcast feed itself, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get them. Leave a like rating, and we really appreciate it. It really helps with the algorithm. Until then, thank you for listening to this one, and we will see you guys next week.